Regaiti fambire mberi tinzwa kuti vamwe vanoti wachii. Guys, if you're just joining me, welcome to the space. My boy is our first speaker anyway, so we haven't done much in terms of contributions, from the speakers. We are dealing with the topic here: leadership, accountability, and evidence, and what do citizens, deserve. So that is the topic, that we are dealing with. All right. Can I bring in Smarters into the conversation, and then followed by Champion?
Thank you so much, Uncle Gerard. Good to see you and everyone on the
Yeah, good
space.
to see you too. Yes, I hope you are good.
I'm doing great, man. Can't complain. Yeah, just since we are in the period of setting records straight, Uncle, we fought constitutional amendment number 2 with
Hmm.
everything that we had when it was
Hmm.
proposed. When Douglas Monzora was abused and used by ZANU PF to try to move for that, even when Malaba's term was extended, in case my boy has forgotten what Constitution Amendment number 2 was all about. So we fought that. So she cannot say, people are just fighting because it's Constitutional Amendment number 3. So I thought I could challenge that because I don't think
No,
that's all my
I
job. I
stand
I really
corrected
I
by
really
you,
I really
smarters.
I
Yeah.
really no. I wanted to interrupt you when you're speaking.
Okay, I'll
Yes.
respond later.
Okay, thank you so much, my boy. Okay. So whilst my boy, I totally agree with a lot of things that you said, but I thought since the space, when you look at the space now, it speaks to accountability, right? So when we are speaking to accountability, right? Accountability does not start at the upper level. It starts from the household, you as an individual. It speaks to integrity. It speaks to the way people are raised up. It speaks to our leadership. It speaks to our expectations. Even as we put people in government, right? It just even at church level, at family level. So that's accountability. It permeates around everything, such that even when you go to journalists, you would expect accountability as well, right? Before a journalist asks a question, you want to check and say, this question, is it coming from a point of wanting to get the information, or it's coming from a biased position, something that I thought Hope Coaching Ono was doing, right? So when I look at so I'm just going to touch on the you know conversations that took place between Opo Chingono and President Nelson Chamisa, and I thought it was the right time for the president to come back and just set the record straight. Because as you know, Opo Chingono has been on record saying a lot of things, right? But one thing that I really liked from the conversations, you notice that these things that have been raised by Hopo Chingono, he is raising them because of a fallout that then happened. They may not agree on the circumstances that led to that fallout, right? To say, oh, it was after Magaisa, funeral, or it was when Job Scala was incarcerated. But the common thing, which is a common cause, is there was a fallout, right? So now when questions are raised, you always want to look at that. That's why you find in courts, when witnesses come to testify, during cross-examination, one of the things that you do is you try to look at the integrity, of that witness, and try to question their integrity, to the point of saying whatever they are going to say, it cannot be relied upon. Right. So when you look at a journalist, when you look at the questions that they're going to ask, you look also at their integrity, something that was of paramount importance. So the question that then Opo Chingono put forward, it was not just a constitutional question, right? And also, when President Nelson Chamisa came, he did not come just to respond to the constitutional question, right? He came with a record to set the record straight. He spoke about enough is enough. There have been lies that have been peddled, right? So that was a claim that came from, or an accusation or an allegation that came from President Nelson Chamisa, right? To say, hey, enough is enough. You've been peddling lies, falsehoods, right? He spoke about journalists and what he expects journalism to be about. And in response, Obo Chungono came. He responded to that, particular post to say, I don't know why you think you are so special to the point that you cannot be criticized, right? So the first post that he put forward, it was an emotional post which was then trying to respond to allegations or accusations that were made. So allegations were made about falsehoods, right? Then a second post, right, was then drafted to put as a challenge. And in that second post, I think that's where I want to dwell my submission on, Ango, right? Then he said, okay, just to prove a point that I've not lied, right? Can Nelson Chamisa produce a constitution, right? So now the assumption that Hopewell, which is an assumption that I feel is very wrong, the assumption that is making is Nelson Chamisa is saying you have lied about the constitution, right? So now he's decided to narrow everything down to a constitution, but it does not stop there, Ango, right? So you accuse an organization of not having a constitution, but in the same vein of accusing that organization, you want them to provide proof of an organization with an organogram that's coming from you, right? So you cannot make a claim, Ango, to say you don't have a constitution. If you have it, can you produce it? And in that constitution, I want to see an organogram. Who told you that there's an organogram? Who told you that in that organogram there's a president, there's a vice president, there's a security or secretary general? Who told you that? Unless you saw somewhere that there has to be a secretary general or there has to be this structure of some sort, right? So that's where I find it very difficult then to follow, the questions. And now coming back to accountability, right? So when questions are asked, Ango, you are running a space, you are going to ask questions, but as you are asking questions, because you want your space to be objective, right? To be objective, say, okay, I'm asking questions to probe people, to probe thought, like the way my boy has submitted the Kariba case. Say, the moment you bring it as a negligence, right, you are taking away the impact and effect of what we are seeing. The issue has gone beyond negligence. Even when you look at our criminal statutes, criminal law in Zimbabwe, right? It has gone to murder. But for us to murder, now we need to look at the office bearers. Who was it to blame, right? Someone who knew that whatever actions that they were going to make, right, they were going to lead to the death of 97 people as we see them today, right? We are asking pertinent questions where we are saying there is no name or last name. We are looking for the person who was responsible first. Once we have identified the person that was responsible now, then we bring on charges. So going back to Nelson Chamisa and Hopewell Chingono, the first question, which I would like to take as a discovery question, is to say, Nelson Chamisa, do you have a constitution? Right? It's a discovery. You can look at it from a research perspective as a dichotomous question where you need a yes or a no, right? Nelson Chamisa responds, yes, I have a constitution. Okay. If you say you have a constitution, can you produce that constitution? Right? Right? Then Nelson Chamisa says, okay, I'm not going just to produce a constitution because I have submitted the same constitution to ZAC. Right? Because the expectation when you are dealing with Smarters, right? Smarters does not have credentials as a journalist. But when you are dealing with an internationally recognized journalist, one's expectation is for just journalists to know the basic requirements of registering a political organization or a political party in Zimbabwe, right? And that requirement being, before your names appear, be it names for MPs, your president, or what, for 2 elections, was Triple C has participated in at least 2 main elections, right? Notwithstanding my by-election that was. So the main by-election that happened in 2022 and the general election of 2023, right? And in these elections, there are requirements in terms of ZEC to say, when you approach ZEC as a political organization, you need to communicate your office bearers. Not only that, Ango, you are not supposed to also submit your specimen for the signatories or the signatures, right? So you submit this. You're not just going to submit, smarter signals just by the mere fact that is so loquacious on spaces, right? You have offshore bearers, and there has to be a constitution that's submitted to to ZEC. And as you submit a constitution, you're not submitting a dissertation or a thesis, right? Because a thesis angle, it comes with an agreed standard to say this is how you're going to start with the background of study. This is how you put a proposal. This is how you do your delimitation. This is how you ask your research questions. This is how you construct a hypothesis, now hypothesis, alternate hypothesis, and all that. Then from there, you go to your literature review. From your literature review, you go to your methodology. Under methodology, right? What is is it a quantitative research? Is it a qualitative? All those instruments, Ango, you know them. Then after that, you go to chapter 5, you look at your findings and all that. This is a standard. Politics in Zimbabwe is not standardized like that. To say when you are producing a constitution, then it should follow this template, especially when you are dealing with a delinquent player. That's my next point. Right? Ango, you play chess.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, Ango.
Submitting. Why do we? Why is it a requirement for a constitution to be submitted? To ZEC?
Yes, it is.
And for what purpose?
Yes, it is a requirement.
For what purpose?
Right.
For what purpose?
I think for what purpose, Ango, to be honest with you, I will not be the best person to respond to that question. But I'm just going to respond to you based on what was communicated by Nelson Chamisa, right? Nelson Chamisa, when he registered the party, remember what he said?
Mm-hmm.
We went to ZEC, right? They thought we were coming as MDC, but we told them we are a new baby, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then they said, how are you a new baby? Right? We know you as MDC. Why are you not coming to register as MDC? They asked from us, our office bearers, we gave them. They also asked for constitution, we gave them. I don't know if you still remember that. Then they made calls were made. We spent some 4 or 5 hours there. Remember, the launch was supposed to be done all right through the media, and they had to delay just for them to, for ZEC to get authorization, right? So Nelson Chamisa is a politician. I have spoken to him privately on calls. The expectation in Zimbabwe today is you have to submit a constitution, right, when you register your name to ZEC. And this is another reason that he gave. When you have a political party, that political party becomes a legal persona. As we see Triple C or as we see MDC Alliance trying to challenge the 2018 elections, right? For you to have that local standard, you need to be a political party, not Nelson Chamisa, right? So it's a political party now challenging Mnangagwa. The same happened to Triple C. And the only thing that can make you a legal persona is a governing document that you need to put in place, which is the document, according to President Nelson Chamisa, it was submitted to ZEC, it was submitted to the Parliament of Zimbabwe, it was also submitted to the Minister of Finance. So that constitution was there. The constitution is there even in the public as you look at the.
So can I mean, can I ask you to the best of your knowledge?
Yeah.
Because the events that you're talking about, the events that happened by election at 2022.
Yes.
Do you have any knowledge? I'm just being inquisitive here. Do you have any knowledge that when Job Sikala went to ZEC to present whatever it is that they needed, to present, the constitution that he took is the one that I was, circulating, today.
Job Sikala. Did you say Job Sikala?
Yes, Job Sikala. Yes, Job Sikala.
When he went to ZEC for what? For Triple C?
Yes, when he went to on the launch of the Triple C. I remember, this delay, that you're talking about.
Yes.
They say, there was a delay. They were asking this, but we went with our governing, document.
Yeah.
Do you have any knowledge of the type of document that they had in their position as the CCC, constitution? Is it the same as the one that we were directed to today?
Ango, I don't want to lie, even though I'm not under oath. It's very difficult for me to respond to that question because I did not see the document that was submitted by Job Sikala, so I cannot compare the two documents. So maybe to respond to that question is, I don't know if it is the same document, but what I know and what I can respond to authoritatively is the constitution was submitted. And it's not possible for you to register a political party without, especially if you are Nelson Chamisa. If your party belongs to Nelson Chamisa, then ZEC tends to be very strict. And that's why I was going to be, touching on my last point, which is a delinquent player, right? When you are Nelson Chamisa and you are approaching the institutions, there are rules that only apply to Nelson Chamisa. That would not apply to any other political organization in Zimbabwe. Right? There are Nelson Chamisa rules, as we have seen them, supported even by Malaba in a constitutional court ruling, right? That numbers do not make sense. So they are so when you are dealing with a delinquent player, Ango, I think you have played chess, right? So when you are playing chess, we follow rules, right? You cannot castle, for instance. You cannot castle once your queen has moved. You cannot castle once your rook has moved, for instance. Or you cannot castle if your king is under attack or under a check, right? Those are the rules that are generally accepted. But in Zimbabwe, do we have rules that are generally accepted? Of course, we don't have. So for you to have a constitution, I know people will talk about a constitution. You can actually have a watertight constitution as long as you don't have a watertight system that's there to adjudicate, that's there to rule over constitutional matters. So that's where we are today. So as Zimbabweans, we cannot pick and choose fights and say, just because today it's fashionable to attack Nelson Chamisa, let's talk about constitutionalism and the constitution. How was your constitution? It did not address 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 issues. That constitution should have had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sections. That's not the issue here, right? Then when we go to Zimbabwe, this constitution of Zimbabwe, right? It speaks that incumbent cannot benefit from an extension. For instance, the same thing that we saw with Malaba, the thing that we are seeing with the parliamentarians today, the thing that we are seeing with Idi Mnangagwa today, right? They are benefiting from a CAB amendment number 3 because they have captured the courts, because they've silenced, my voice is the opposition. They've killed people through the August 2018, so people cannot protest, right? We don't have courts to run to. So even if you were to have a constitution, a watertight constitution in Zimbabwe, as long as you have a delinquent player, as long as you have ZEC, as long as you have our courts, that constitution cannot save you, right? So we can talk about accountability, this and all that, right? Then the last point, if you are Nelson Chamisa, if you can have these seats, right, without a constitution, then that should be recorded in X as a miracle on its own. Same way. Right? Say you are a president, a one-man band. You don't have organ. We saw the Chibayas, right, going around coordinating. We saw people from diaspora, right? People would not have direct contact to Nelson Chamisa, who were mobilizing, right? I know people would say, they organize themselves and all that, but there was a leader, right? They were speaking to different leaders. We saw for the first time in history, the opposition managed to field 210 candidates in the 210 constituents for MPs. We saw in our history that out of 1,935 councillor positions in our election, we saw an opposition that fielded almost 90% for the first time. And this Nelson Chamisa managed to do it single-handedly. Truly is a son of God after Jesus Christ. Thank you, Ango.